My name is Sierra. I'm 18 now. I live in Columbus, Ohio with my mom, in the same house I've lived in since I was 4 years old. It's a regular house on a regular street. 2 stories, attached garage, a backyard with a chain-link fence, and a maple tree my dad put in before he left. The neighbors on the left are a retired couple who grow tomatoes every summer. The neighbors on the right have 3 kids and a dog that barks at everything. It's the kind of street where you know people's first names and wave when you back out of the driveway, and don't think twice about leaving your car unlocked in the driveway overnight. Nothing about where I live would make you feel anything other than ordinary. I want you to understand that before I tell you the rest. I have a sister named Avery. She was 14 months older than me, which means we were basically the same age for about 6 weeks every year, and she never let me forget it. She had this thing where she'd say, "We're the same age right now, which means I'm not technically your boss for the next month," and then she'd make me do something she wanted anyway. She was funny like that. She could talk her way into or out of anything. She had dark hair and these very specific dark brown eyes that were almost black in certain light. And when she laughed, really laughed, she'd cover her mouth with both hands like she was trying to hold it in. Avery died when I was 15. She was 16. She had a heart condition that had been there since birth, something that had been monitored and managed and that everyone believed was under control. She collapsed at school on a Tuesday in March. They called my mom at work. By the time my mom got to the hospital, Avery was already gone. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on what that was like. If you've lost someone you were that close to, you already know. If you haven't, I don't think there are words that actually get there. I'll just say that Avery and I had shared a bedroom for the first 12 years of our lives, that we talked every night until one of us fell asleep, and that after she died the house was so quiet at night that it felt like a different house entirely. Like the walls were wrong. My mom handled it her way. She kept working, kept the routine, kept the house. She's a strong person and she shows it by staying in motion. I handled it differently. I got very still. I spent a lot of time in my room. I didn't sleep well for months, which I know is normal, but the specific way I didn't sleep, I'd fall asleep fine and then wake up at the same time every night and just lie there, completely awake. No particular reason. Just awake and staring at the ceiling with the room all dark around me and Avery's old bed, which I'd never moved, pushed up against the opposite wall. That started maybe 3 weeks after she died and became so consistent that I stopped thinking much of it. I'd wake up, check my phone, see it was somewhere between 2 and 3 in the morning, and just wait to fall back asleep. Sometimes I'd scroll for a while. Sometimes I'd lie there and think. Eventually, I'd drift off again and wake up at a normal time and go through the day. This was just my life for about 7 months. Then one night in October, about 7 months after Avery died, I woke up at 2:14 in the morning, same as always. I checked my phone, put it back down, and shifted onto my side facing the wall. I was in that half state, not quite asleep, not quite awake, where everything gets a little liquid at the edges. And then I felt something at the foot of my bed. Not on the bed, next to it, near the floor. It's very hard to describe, and I've tried to find the right words 100 times. It was like a weight in the air beside me, close to the ground, like the feeling when a dog settles down next to where you're sitting, and you can sense the warmth and the density of something alive being near you. Except we didn't have a dog. And whatever this was, it was lower than a dog. It felt like something was sitting on the floor right next to the foot of my bed. I went completely still. I didn't turn over. I just lay there on my side facing the wall and listened. Nothing, no sound, but the feeling didn't leave. It stayed exactly where it was. Beside my legs, near the floor, like something sitting cross-legged the way Avery used to sit when we were little, and she'd come into my side of the room to show me something. She'd drop right down onto the floor and sit cross-legged and hold up whatever she had, some bug she'd found in the backyard, a note she'd written in code, a drawing she'd done in class. I lay there for what felt like a very long time before the feeling faded. It didn't leave all at once. It was more like the way a sound fades out, gradually gone and then gone completely, and after it was gone, I turned over slowly and looked at the foot of my bed. Just carpet. Just the normal dark of the room. Avery's empty bed across from mine. I talked myself down very easily that night. I told myself I had imagined it in that half-asleep state, that grief does things to you, that my brain was probably doing what brains do when they're trying to process something enormous. I believed that completely. I went back to sleep. It happened again 3 nights later. Same time. I woke up at 2 and something, and within a minute or two the feeling was there again. That same low, settled presence beside my legs near the floor. Same location, same side of the bed. I was less calm this time because I'd been here before. I lay still again and I tried to think clearly about what I was experiencing. I was not asleep. I was fully awake. I could see the ceiling clearly, could hear my mom's white noise machine running down the hall, could feel the exact texture of my pillowcase against my cheek. This was not a dream. I turned over quickly that time, trying to catch whatever it was before it could fade. There was nothing there, but the feeling took another 20 or 30 seconds to fully dissipate after I turned over, like whatever was causing it needed a moment to respond to me moving. And in those seconds before it faded, I had this overwhelming, irrational, completely unasked for thought. It felt like Avery. I don't know how else to say it. I wasn't looking for a sign. I wasn't the kind of person who believed in that sort of thing, and I want to make that clear because I think it matters. I had never been someone who went to church or thought much about what happens after death or read anything about the supernatural. I was a teenager who liked true crime podcasts and reality TV and sleeping late on Saturdays. The thought didn't come from a place of hope or wishful thinking. It came from a place of deep animal recognition, the same part of you that knows someone's footsteps before you see their face, that knows someone's voice in the dark before they say anything identifiable. It came from the part of me that had shared a room with Avery for 12 years. I started paying attention. I kept a note in my phone. The date, the time, how long the feeling lasted, whether it was different in any way from the night before. I did this the way you document anything you were trying to understand. I gave myself rules. I wasn't going to assume anything. I was just going to observe. Over the next 6 weeks, it happened 14 times. Always between 2 and 3 in the morning. Always beside the foot of my bed, on the left side, nearest to where Avery's bed sat against the wall. Never on the right side, never at the head of the bed, never anywhere else in the room. 14 times, same location, same hours, same sensation of something low and settled and present. On the 9th occurrence, something new happened. I woke up at 2:31 and felt it arrive the same way it always did, that gradual accumulation of presence beside my legs. I was lying on my back this time instead of my side, and after maybe 5 minutes, I felt something on my head, just barely. Like a hand placed very lightly on the top of my head, the way you'd rest a hand on someone's head without any pressure, the way my mom used to when I was small and had a fever, and she'd sit on the edge of the bed and just keep her hand there. Still and warm and without any weight behind it. I started crying immediately. I couldn't help it. Not loud crying, not sobbing, just my eyes suddenly full and running over before I'd made any decision to cry. I lay completely still because I was terrified that if I moved it would stop, and I just let it happen. The hand on my head, the presence at my feet, the dark room, Avery's empty bed across from mine, my mom asleep down the hall behind her closed door. I lay there for a long time that night, longer than any other time. Whatever was there stayed for what my phone told me afterward was almost 40 minutes before it faded the same way it always did. After that night, I stopped being afraid. I want to be clear that up until that point, even though some part of me believed it was Avery, I had been afraid every single time. Fear is biological. It doesn't ask permission. But after the 9th time after that hand on my head, I stopped being afraid of it. I was something else instead. I don't have a precise word for it. Heavy, full, sad in a way that felt strangely like gratitude. I never told my mom. I want to explain that. My mom was surviving. She was doing it well. She was doing everything right. But I knew the fragile architecture of what was holding her together, and I wasn't going to introduce something that would destabilize it. If I told my mom I thought Avery was sitting next to my bed in the middle of the night, one of two things would happen. She'd believe me and fall apart, or she wouldn't believe me, and I'd have to watch her look at me with that careful, worried look that meant she was thinking about whether I needed more help than she knew how to give. I wasn't willing to do either one to her. So I kept it in the phone notes, and I kept going to school, and I kept my door closed at night. But the more I sat with it, the more something started to bother me, not the presence itself. That had stopped scaring me. What started to bother me was the thought that Avery was stuck. That word kept coming back to me, stuck. Like she was sitting next to my bed every night, not because she wanted to be there, but because she didn't know how to be anywhere else. Like something was unfinished or unresolved, and she was looping back to the last place she'd felt completely herself, which was our room, which was the two of us in the dark talking until someone fell asleep. I started talking to her, just out loud, quietly in the dark after the feeling arrived. I'd lie there and I'd just talk. I told her about school. I told her about a fight I'd had with my friend Danny that turned out to be about nothing. I told her I was sorry I hadn't been there that Tuesday, that I'd been in third period Spanish not knowing yet that anything was wrong while she was already gone, and that I thought about that more than I thought about most things. I told her about the maple tree in the backyard, that it had dropped a branch in a storm over the summer, and the yard looked different without it. I don't know if she heard me. I don't know how any of it works. But I know that talking made me feel less helpless, and I know that the presence at the foot of my bed felt, in some way I can't quantify or prove, more settled on the nights I talked than on the nights I didn't. But it didn't stop. November became December became January, and she was still there every few nights, still between 2 and 3 in the morning, still at the foot of my bed. And the feeling I'd had that she was stuck grew stronger rather than going away. I started to feel like I was failing her somehow, like I was supposed to do something and I was just lying there instead. I decided I needed to go to her. Avery is buried at a cemetery about 3 miles from our house. It's not a large cemetery, not an old one, mostly flat with some trees along the edges and a small stone chapel near the entrance that nobody seems to use. My mom and I had been there a handful of times together. I'd been there once by myself in the summer, in the middle of the day, and I'd sat there for a while and it had felt important but not quite enough. Like I'd shown up to a conversation and then not known how to start it. I went on a Saturday in late January. Daytime, because I want to be very honest about the fact that I am 16 and there are limits to what I was willing to attempt alone. But I went by myself, without telling my mom, and I drove myself there in her car with her permission under the reason of going to Danny's house. I parked at the entrance and walked to Avery's section, and I sat down cross-legged in the cold grass in front of her headstone. I sat exactly the way she used to sit on the floor of our room. And then I talked. I said everything I needed to say. I told her that I missed her in a way that hadn't gotten smaller the way people said grief would eventually get smaller, that it had just changed shape, that it was less sharp and more constant now, like a sound in a room that you stop noticing until the room goes quiet. I told her I thought she'd been coming to sit with me and that I loved her for it, that I understood why, that our room had been our whole world for a long time and of course some part of her would find her way back there. I told her I had been talking to her in the dark and I hoped she could hear me. And then I said the thing I had come there to say. I told her it was okay to go. I told her I didn't want her to be stuck. I told her that I was going to be all right, that Mom was going to be all right, that we were sad and we were going to stay sad, but that we were also okay. That we were still here and still getting through the days. I told her she didn't have to sit on the floor next to my bed at 2 in the morning keeping watch over me. I told her I knew she was doing it the same way she did everything, which was quietly and without making a fuss and without asking for anything in return, and that it was so completely her that I couldn't stand it. I sat there until I was too cold to stay any longer. I said goodbye the way you say goodbye to someone you're going to see again, even when you're not sure you are. I put my hand on the headstone for a moment the way a hand had been placed on my head, and then I walked back to the car. That was a Saturday in January. The following week, I woke up at 2:40 in the morning on Tuesday and lay there waiting. I waited for a long time, longer than it usually took. The room was still and cold and dark, and Avery's bed was across from mine, and the white noise machine was running down the hall. The feeling didn't come. I waited until almost 4 o'clock, and then I fell back asleep, and when I woke up, I didn't know what to feel. I didn't know if I was relieved or devastated. It turned out I was both, which is something I've gotten used to when it comes to Avery. Everything about her is both. It hasn't happened again. Not once in the 2 years since that Saturday in January. Some nights I wake up at the same old time, and I lie there and I wait, and there's nothing there, just the regular dark of a regular room, and eventually I fall back asleep. I've thought a lot about what I actually believe happened. I'm 18 now, and I have a little more distance, and I've read things and talked to my therapist in the way you talk around something without saying the whole thing. Here is where I land on most days. I think grief finds a way. I think the people we love become such a specific part of the way we move through the world that when they're gone, some part of us keeps reaching toward where they used to be. And maybe, sometimes, something reaches back. I can't prove that. I'm not asking you to believe it. I'm just telling you what I experienced in that room over those 7 months, as clearly and honestly as I can. Avery was 16 years old. She had dark eyes that were almost black in certain light, and she laughed with both hands over her mouth, and she used to sit cross-legged on the floor of our bedroom in the dark and talk to me until one of us fell asleep. I think she just wasn't ready to stop doing that yet. And I think, when I finally went to her and told her it was okay, she believed me. I hope wherever she is, she's somewhere good, somewhere quiet and warm and hers. I think she is.